All right, welcome to the Axecast. This is the Tuesday, May 2nd, 2023 edition of the Axecast. Guys, the Grizzly season has ended since the last time that we have spoken in a quite miserable fashion. A 125-85 loss to the Lakers. So the Grizzlies are now transitioning into the offseason, looking ahead to I guess like maybe even the draft and like summer league. What do you guys? Uh, what does your wish list look like for this offseason?
Yeah, so I've got some things that I think are pretty obvious. And then after going back and listening to Zach Kleiman speak in his exit interviews, I think are pretty well represented. I think there's a very good chance they're going to happen. Let me pull up my exact tweet. You can go follow me at Parmeter Eric on Twitter if you want to hear what I have to say. But I had a tweet that I think Grizzly posted like, if you were the Grizzlies GM, like Zach Kleiman, what would you do this offseason? And my response was, number one, extend Desmond Bane. I think that's pretty obvious. And Zach Kleiman seemed very adamant that that's not even a question, that we are going to extend Desmond Bane. Number two, also checked today, send Dillon to the Sun. I will say I think Dillon's getting a lot of negative attention all
Man's
over.
getting blasted
He's
right now.
getting, I mean, today Shanghai Sharks was trending on Twitter, which was crazy. China was trending on Twitter. Just Dillon was getting memed to death on Twitter today. And I don't think that's representative of how Dillon Brooks should be remembered as a member of the Memphis Grizzlies. It was very up and down, very tough ending for Dillon. But, he came in and he helped us kind of bridge the gap between the grit and grind era and the next gen Grizz. And he played an important part of that, no doubt about it. And, Tony Allen's mentor, or being under the wing, Tony Allen was his mentor for him and helped bring him under his wing. And I do want to give my respect and thanks to Dillon for all he did. Just now has been the obvious time that we need to part ways. For a variety of different reasons. But that's my number two, is getting rid of Dillon. We've done that. And number three on my list is to get kind of like another star scorer on our team, borderline star, whether it's Mikal Bridges, Jeremy Grant, or Chris Middleton. Those are three guys I've thrown out there. And, I don't know what the trade market or the free agency market is going to look like just yet. And Kleiman reiterated that, but he seemed very adamant that they're going to make a move to replace Dillon and get better. OG Anunoby is another guy. And then I only had two more things. This one might be a little controversial because I love this player, but it makes sense and it's going to have to happen. Trade Tyus Jones. After this next season, he's going to walk no matter what. He's going to become a free agent, and he clearly has said he wants to be a starter on an NBA team, and he almost did that last offseason, but decided to come to Memphis on a 2-year deal. And I think it's very obvious that we need to try to get as much value from Tyus as much as possible. He's been such a luxury to have on our team, to be the backup to John Morant, and he's done a lot of great things, and he's a great player, great person. I love him. But NBA is a business, and I think if we want to get better and make the necessary moves to take the next level as a championship team, Tyus Jones is a very valuable asset that other teams will be very interested in, that, we're not going to get any value anyways if we keep him for one more year. So I think not only do I think that should happen, I do think that will happen. And you guys could give me your take on that. But the last thing I have is a replacement for Tyus, whether that's Kennedy Chandler. What?
He's gone.
Well, whether it's Kennedy Chandler bringing him back.
Okay.
Like a Gabe Vincent, or this would be a stretch, but I would love it if Mike Conley would come back and accept a 6-man role. That'd be insane because I still love Mike and he's playing really good basketball and over in Minnesota, and I'd love to have him back as our 6-man and kind of be that veteran presence that we miss, and that would be a dream scenario. But yeah, so that's my basic list. You know, we've covered 2 of them already. I think the next move is to get a star and then trade Tyus Jones and find the replacement for him. And then also just getting healthy again. That's something we've been struggling with, but that's my list.
Yeah, for the most part, I agree, Eric. I think you hit the nail on the head with, first off, Bane Extension. I texted earlier, I actually had a dream that we traded Desmond Bane. And it was like so like scary to me that I woke up and was like, thank goodness we still have Bane. So yes, give Bane whatever he needs. Like Kleiman said, like he said the same thing with Morant. Whatever I'm allowed to say about our interest in Bane, I hereby say it. So I was glad to hear that. Dillon Brooks news came today. I think it's the right move, but I'm glad that you gave him some credit because he has been such a huge part of our team, the longest tenured Grizzly. And I think he's had some great moments that have been overshadowed by some poor offensive decision-making. So I'm really sad to see him go. But I do admit, I think his time has come with our team. And for us to move forward, we might need to move on from Dillon as much as I liked him. Next thing, the trades. I do think it would be a great idea to maybe cash in on some of our assets. Like Kleiman said, did we really need to triple down on youth last offseason? I don't know. If we want to be a competitive team and if now really is the window, maybe it would be a good idea to start trading some of our draft picks and young players because we can't play them all. And like a lot of them didn't even get playing time in the postseason. So
hey, if Luke's saying trade our draft picks, you know it's getting serious because you're the number one proponent of getting draft picks. That's how you know we're at a crossroads.
I think it's time. I mean, but here's what I'll say though. The value of star-ish players has been so inflated recent years that if we have to give up an obscene amount of picks for someone who's not the guy that we absolutely need, then I wouldn't do it. And like I'll say, like last offseason, the Timberwolves had just lost a playoff series to us, but I thought they were a very promising young team and they had a great future with all their assets and gave it all for Rudy Gobert, who, in my opinion, like makes them worse. And they have to pay him like $50 million a year. And now they have no more draft picks and half their team's gone. So
one of the worst modern day trades.
It was ridiculous.
It was
terrible. I trust Kleiman not to do that, but anything like even 30% of that would be a mistake in my opinion, just because of how much I hated that trade. Like they were just making, like Kleiman says, they don't make moves to make moves. I think Minnesota was just, I don't know what they were thinking. So if we have to give up crazy, like Toronto was asking for 3 underprotected first-round picks for OG Anunoby. I'm not sure I like that. I don't think he's worth that much. I think he would be a good fit on the team, but like my worst nightmare is we trade all our stuff for OG Anunoby, and then a month later, an actual legitimate star requests a trade, and then all our stuff is gone because we wasted it. So
I agree.
I think that is my cautionary message for people favoring trades. I do think that in order for it to get done, it is a business, and we probably would have to trade Tyus Jones as much as like a huge part of the team as he's been, and as much as I love Tyus, I think he's been super important to us winning as many games as we did the past 2 seasons. And it would be awful to see him go, but he only has 1 more year left on his contract, like you said, Eric. And if we let him go for nothing, that might be a mistake in my opinion. So it's not up to me, but I think he might have to be included. I think Brandon might have to be included just for contract purposes. And another thing I might keep an eye out for is maybe a Dillon sign and trade if any NBA team still is interested in him. Who knows?
I don't think the market for Dillon is going to be that much.
It's not that lucrative.
I wouldn't think so, but also I think like the Raptors might take a flyer on him or something.
Yeah.
Apparently, we've been trying to trade Dillon.
He's an NBA player.
Did y'all hear that?
Say again?
What?
Apparently, we've been trying to trade Dillon for 2 years, and nobody wanted him.
Who knew?
Luke, to your point, I agree about overpaying, especially for OG Anunoby. I will say that I was completely okay with the offer we offered Mikal Bridges. I think he is a player that is legitimately the perfect piece for offense. I'd rather overpay for him than any other player that like we've known is available. Now there could be, like you said, a new star player that is available, but I would be personally okay with overpaying for Mikal Bridges because he's that good and he's that reliable. Dude never gets hurt. He's always very solid. But I agree. OG Anunoby I would like, but I don't know if I would do 3 unprotected first or something crazy like that for him.
Yeah, I see your point, and I'll respond with Mikal had such a crazy end of the season for Brooklyn that I think his stocks are like through the roof. So if they didn't accept 4 first-round picks at the deadline, there's no way they'll accept it now after his value has been inflated more. So I agree. I think he would be a great fit for the team. And I think he's a great player, but I don't know if I think it would work out. What I'd keep an eye on is like disappointing playoff exit teams. Maybe some star player will like be disgruntled by that. And then we just don't know yet, like Kleiman said. So
my one counter to that would be at the time of the offer to Brooklyn, you could say that they were trying to continue to win. Like, what's their direction? Like, do you think like, I think there's a chance that now that this season's over and they saw how it played out and they just have all these like combo wings, like they have so many excess wings on their team. Like, what are they trying to build around there? Like, I don't know if they have anything that they value. Maybe they do value Mikal as a long-term, but I personally question like their direction and their willingness to keep some of those guys, but who knows?
That's a good point. And if they decide to pivot, then I would be very much in favor of trying to throw everything at them. Not everything, but
yeah,
lots of things. So I agree with that. Yes. And then just like the last thing I think is we really need to make an emphasis on getting 3-point shooters because we were exposed in that series because we could not shoot threes at all. And I think the only 2 players who kind of can above average are Bane and Kennard. And Kennard didn't even play that much. And Bane had a tough shooting series. So we really need to find more shooters any way possible. So I'll leave it to Kleiman, but I think he did hint that was in the cards for the offseason plans as well.
Yeah. Well, yeah, so I guess I'll just run through the points that you guys are making. Bane, obviously, yes, extend whatever he wants, within reason, and he deserves it. I just love like hearing the stories about Bane, like staying in Memphis and like I think he's got a new house. I think he used to live out in Curryville and like now he lives somewhere else. But like every high school gym is like being open for Bane. Like you hear stories about him like going to Briarcrest, going to like Curryville, going to like Christian Brothers, and like he's just getting up shots at like all hours during the day in the summer. Like he's just a grinder. It's just a type of person that you want in your locker room, and he's a great player. Like, if he doesn't break his foot 20 games, 15 games into the season, I mean, he had a shot at cracking an all-star team. So, yeah, obviously love Bane. Happy that Kleiman was so open about extending him. He was like, yeah, we're extending Bane. So that was cool. And then flip side of that, and the next topic that we'll get into, Kleiman was like refusing to answer questions about Dillon. And
he's so mad.
It was, bro. It was hilarious. He was like, yeah, no, I'm just not going to talk about Dillon today. And it's like, you never talk to the media, so it's not today. When is it? And of course, we got the news today that Dillon will not be returning. And I think now, honestly, like I like what you did, Eric. And like I think now is probably a good time just to run through like was it 6 years that Dillon has spent in Memphis. His rookie year was still technically that like grit and grind era. I have one memory of Dillon from his rookie year, him hitting that game winner against the Kings. We were wearing like those statement all white jerseys, and he hit some like game winner three that he just pulled up in like semi transition from. That was kind of cool. Yeah, you hear like all the stories about like him and Tony Allen. That was cool to see. And like Dillon, I was a long time Dillon lover, man. But like in our early days of the Axe Cast, like I was defending Dillon all the time. And I think for great reason, what I would say is that like both sides of the ball, offense and defense, both teams, Dillon is the one that's giving the most effort night in and night out. And you couldn't deny that. And that was someone that you want to have on your team, right? You want those junkyard dogs that just like give the effort night in, night out, leave it all out there on the floor. And I wanted that. And I still want that. And where I went sour with Dillon is really last season, that Golden State series. He had even had like great playoff series before then, like the Utah Jazz series. Was it game 2? We didn't win game 2, but I think he had a great game in game 2.
I think game 1 he played good too.
Game 1. He had great games in the playoffs, shooting well. I think it was that same season in the regular season. I remember seeing the stat. It was like the Grizzlies are like 18-2 when Dillon scores like 20 plus points.
Yeah.
Or something like that. Like,
they also didn't lose whenever what was that guy's name that I like so much?
Marco Guterich.
Marco Guterich scored 20 points.
Because he never did.
That was a good stat nobody brought up, but whatever.
He was so bad. Oh my god.
He's good.
But
get
they
him
were
for shooting purposes.
Well, he couldn't make it.
He was okay.
But no, like there was highlights for Dillon, like I said, always gave effort, is always an advantage as far as defensively. One of the better perimeter defenders in the league for a long time now. That's kind of been his staple. And where I really went sour with Dillon is coming into that Golden State series. I think it was game 3. I don't remember which game, but he starts the game like 0 of 3, like bricking and airballing shots. And then he just clotheslines Gary Payton II, breaks his elbow out of frustration that he was missing shots. And that's the point where I started to turn around on Dillon because, I was willing to overlook the fact that he's not the most lovable guy, not the most high character guy. And then like it just went full swing into the season. There's the clip of him like hitting Donovan Mitchell in the nuts, like after like a foul or something.
I was there at that game.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. I forgot you were there. And then like, all this stuff that he's putting in the media, this series with the Lakers, I poke bears, so it gives me 40. And then like, why is my Siri going off? Stop.
I didn't get.
Wait. But basically, like, I don't know, just he's the only guy in our locker room that was not a great guy, like not a great human being. Like he was selfish. He was selfish, is what he was, and it was really disappointed to see that. because I feel like it's kind of been a development in these past couple years where he wasn't really like, I don't know, like Dillon was always Dillon, but I feel like he just took it a step farther in, these past 2 playoff runs. And like you said, Eric, there's been highlights. There's been great moments of Dillon. I think Taylor Jenkins was always right. Like he sets the tone defensively. And I think that was an advantage, but really just his shooting, which has never been there, really, really came to highlight, this playoff series against the Lakers. I have the numbers pulled up. I think like 23% from 3, 23.8% from 3 in the playoff series against the Lakers, 31% from the field on 10 points per game, just 0.2 steals and 0 blocks, 0.0 blocks for a defensive player. So yeah, the time was just up for Dillon in Memphis. And I'm looking forward to seeing how our locker room can change moving into next season, because he's that only guy. Like he's the only guy in that locker room that's not, a lovable person, right? I mean, you can go through everybody else in that roster. They're all lovable guys. And even Ja, he's been seen in a negative spotlight lately, but people still like Ja. No one likes Dillon. So,
outside of the organization, I think like the team, the players liked Dillon and they rocked with him. But yeah, no one outside of the locker room liked him.
Yeah. People were cheering for the Lakers. People were cheering for the Lakers. They were rooting for the Grizzlies to lose, and it was because of Dillon Brooks.
Yeah.
Well, just everybody loves the stupid Lakers and LeBron James, so
I feel like most people try to root for the smaller market, but
Luke, who are you going for, Lakers or Warriors?
yeah.
I might just I'm not watching a single game of that. I refuse. That's like the worst possible matchup.
Game 1's tonight, right?
Yeah.
They already forced me that 5 years in a row. I don't want to see it again.
So
I wanted to say, I think I kind of always suspect that Dillon is acting wildly on the court, but I think Kleiman said it in his interview, and I think I've heard someone else say that he's just kind of playing a character, and I think off the court he's a much nicer guy. I don't think he's a villain in real life.
No, he definitely
just how he decided to make his money or whatever.
Yeah, I agree. But I've also heard stories of people I know that wait tables at nice restaurants in Memphis, and they get Grizzlies players that come in there all the time, and they talk about how jovial Jaren is, how much of a bright personality he is, how much he tips and stuff, and Dillon is just shades on, doesn't talk.
I would be very curious though to see what happens to him, because as much as I've criticized him over the years, like I said, I do feel bad for him right now, because he is literally the laughing stock of the NBA right now. He's literally getting memed to death by everyone.
Yeah. I just spent 5 minutes talking about how much I like that we're not bringing back Dillon Brooks, but I honestly do feel bad for him. He doesn't deserve this much hate. No.
He's a father. He's got a little daughter, and he's trying to feed his family. And now, it's not a sure thing that he's going to be back in the NBA. It's not.
Yeah.
Because he's literally played himself out of the league.
Yeah. No,
the flyer on him.
Yeah. I wish the best for Dillon, and I hope he finds a home, an NBA home somewhere else. Yeah, I just think his time in Memphis has fittingly come to an end. And what was y'all were talking about Kleiman getting another superstar. Yeah, that was pretty apparent, I thought, in his exit interview. Was we're kind of in win now mode, and Kleiman's done a great job of being able to find rookies on cheap contracts that we can like get high level play. I mean, you can go down our whole roster, like just players that are outplaying their contract, right? BC, David Roddy was like even playing really well for us. Who else? Gosh,
I mean, Bane.
Yes,
Bane's
yes.
contract.
Yeah, dude. Bane, like, seriously, like, one of the worst contracts in NBA history as far as a player because of the amount of points that he puts up.
Well, it's just like his rookie contract. They couldn't have, like, it's not his
No,
fault.
no, I know. I just like, what's just a steal.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm really interested to see what we do in free agency. I'm not going to really be expecting a huge move in free agency. And just because we're like the smallest market in the NBA, like no one is going to choose to come to Memphis. The last big free agent that we had was Chandler Parsons. So
good signing.
I do think we've changed a little bit though. Like I do think having Ja, Bane, and Jaren, I do think we're definitely more of a destination than we've ever been. That's not saying we'll get anyone crazy, but I do think it's a little different now that we have, especially Ja. Like I do think some players would want to play with Ja.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's true. I can see that. I guess I'll believe it when I see it, as far as like a borderline all-star player choosing to come to Memphis in free agency. So I think the bigger move could be in a trade mid-season, which like what you guys are talking about with Tyus. Yeah, I mean, I don't hate the idea of, maybe using Tyus as an asset. I think I said last Axcast, I think he's really suffered from the BC injury. Just those high pick and rolls. He just wasn't able to use that. But even then, like his shooting numbers were really, really low. And, like now when you're looking at this roster, you've basically just got to ask yourself the question, can this person contribute in a playoff series? And for a lot of the players on the roster, you're really going to have to dive deep into that question, I think.
Yeah, let me see. Should we like go down and think how many people we truly think can contribute? Like it's Ja, Jaren, Bane. Why am I blanking? Steven Adams, Tillman, Clarke, Kennard. So 7. Roddy, I believe in him. I think he's going to be really good next year. 8.
Tyus.
Tyus as of now, 9. And then Aldama sort of like he could at times. I think by next year, hopefully
Aldama should be in there.
So 10, which that's better than most teams. But like the thing is like the lack of 3-point shooting with those people. Like,
do we think Zaire or Laravia could take a step, become one of the shooting solutions?
Potentially, I do think one of them is going to be gone off our team, though. But Kleiman in his interview was like, people are going to be surprised by Jake Laravia next year.
Yeah.
And then, which he did say that about Santi last year. So that's interesting. But then he said he was praising Zaire too. And so was Jenkins. So I don't know. This is a big offseason for Zaire. If he could figure it out, great. But at this point, I think that he's a good asset for us to move on from.
Man, we used to be like so high on him after like last season, and then like
he fell off a cliff is the problem.
I think he just didn't get an opportunity after his injury.
I mean, he did, like when he played though, you could just tell he didn't have any confidence. He wasn't shooting well. His ball handling was somewhat better, but he still couldn't really play make. And it's just he's not fitting with our timeline right now. Now, if he takes a big step and he's really knocking down threes and he could make plays off the dribble, then sure. Like that's like his ceiling and he'd be a great defender and he'd help contribute for us. But like where he was at this year wasn't matching with where we were at as a team timeline wise.
The first person out of Taylor Jenkins's mouth was Zaire Williams in his exit interview. So I thought that was interesting. Like nobody asked Taylor about Zaire, and he brought him up like within the first 15 seconds of his first answer. So,
yeah, and kind of going back to what you said, Caleb, he did, or I think someone said it, where Kleiman was like, yeah, do we really need to triple down on youth? Luke, that's making me think that we're definitely going to package at least a couple, probably 2 of our young guys, I think Roddy's untouchable. I don't think we're moving on from him, but I wouldn't be shocked if like Zaire, Laravia, Aldama, I wouldn't be shocked if any of those guys leave. Now Kenny Lofton, I mean, Kleiman like went on a little tangent praising him, and he looked giddy when he was like, you could tell he was trying to hold back smiling when he was talking about Kenny Lofton and his future, which I thought that was interesting and pretty funny. So I don't know if we'd include him in any deal based off that alone. But I do think that, clearly, if you watch the exit interview, Kleiman basically acknowledged and admitted that we went too hard on the youth. Like it had been working for us, and we had been doing well with young guys. But we do understand that going that route is more of a developmental process, and our timeline as an organization trying to win right now, we're kind of past that point right now. And so that just makes me believe that, whether it's our current young guys, some of them like I just named, or whether it's our first round pick this year and 2 of our second round picks next year, or our future first down the road, I do think that they would be willing and probably will move on from some of those assets to get a little more experienced.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think you put it really well with that wording. I'd love to see us trade this stuff like we said earlier, but like again, I don't know if I want to trade away all those good young guys. They're really good, like especially Roddy. So I would be really sad to see 2, like even one of them leave. So I think if we could keep it to draft picks, that'd be preferable.
Fair.
I mean, we've got so many young players, and they can't all play. Like they're all good. Like a lot of these players that we're naming, like Laravia. I mean, we did have Kennedy, but I guess not anymore. Lofton Jr., Santee. Roddy too. Like all these players are good. They're not great. Like they have a role, but at the end of the day, I think they're expendable.
I think all of them are expendable except Roddy. I'm a Roddy believer. He showed too many flashes this year of what he can be. And once he figures it out, he's still very young. Once he learns the game more, continues working on his shot, and I think he's going to be really good one day. And I hope that's with us. I'm a believer.
I told y'all on like the earlier Xcast, like I'm buying all the David Roddy stock now because this guy is amazing. He needs to like. Sometimes I think he just gets a little bit too 3 happy, and like when he drives it, it's always so good. So he could be more complete, but like he's so like unique and fun to watch. I agree with you.
Yeah. Luke Kennard, the biggest addition to the Grizzlies at the trade deadline, proved to be a massive, massive get for the Grizzlies and our front office. Kleiman raved about Kennard. I don't know if y'all watched Kennard's exit interview, but he was talking about how much Memphis has welcomed him with open arms. In his exit interview, he was talking about how excited he is to get playing time in, like working with our bigs this offseason. So that was like encouraging to see. Obviously Luke Kennard is essential to what the Grizzlies are going to be doing. next season. And I would say I wouldn't be surprised if we at some point extend him, give him another contract. At least we would hope so.
What was
and I think-
interesting about what Kleiman was talking about? Sorry, Caleb. What was interesting about what Kleiman was talking about with Luke was how he was naming like our best lineups down the stretch were with Bane and Kennard in it, whether it was Bane, Luke, Tyus, Bane, Luke. So that's one thing I am intrigued about is I don't believe this will happen, but like I wouldn't be shocked if we did make upgrades to the team, but we did so by moving Kennard into our starting lineup and then bringing in more shooting for the bench. I would rather keep Kennard on the bench and like get more firepower for the starting lineup. But that was very interesting to me that Kleiman was, when he was talking about like the additions and how our rotations were shaping out, he was naming Kennard and how really he helped space the floor for everything. And he was talking very highly of him. So that was very interesting to me. I don't know if I'm just reading into it too much, but I guess I'll say I wouldn't be shocked if Kennard ends up being a starter, but I kind of would prefer him to stay on the bench if we get a better upgrade for the starting five.
Yeah.
I guess that's all contingent on us like finding someone to make a trade for, right?
Yeah.
I have like too many things written down from these exit interviews. Hard to keep track of it all. So BC towards Achilles beginning of March. Kleiman says that BC is ahead of schedule, if anything, which was good news to hear. Says that he expects BC to be back at some point, definitely not earlier in the season, but I don't know, maybe like Christmas, January time is, I guess, what we could hope for. Nobody's given us a time on. That's just me speculating. BC, what do we think about BC? Yeah.
Well, like he's one of my favorite Grizzlies. And like ever since we drafted him, I think he's been like a very, very reliable player. And I'm so glad he's on the team. But when we talk about making trades, like we have been, there's only like certain players whose like contracts would work for the trades to go through. And so if we are going to make a trade, like we've been saying, like you kind of have to sacrifice some players. And Clarke's contract, I think, fits squarely into that category, as well as like people like Tyus Jones, I'd say Steven Adams and Luke Kennard. So like I love all of those players, but if we want to make the next step and get like another great player, like we've been saying, I don't think you can keep 3 of those guys. Probably you'd have to get rid of 2 of them. So which 2 of those would you want to lose? And probably what we've been saying was you might have to sacrifice Tyus because he's like going to have to get an extension soon. And I don't know if we can give up Steven Adams, and I don't know if we can give up Luke Kennard because we really need these shooters. Mm-hmm. So I think through that like lens, Clarke might be a potential like casualty to like the growth that we need. And I would hate to see that. But I think we should keep an eye out for it. But only if we find the absolute right player, like I've been saying. If he, in the event that he doesn't get traded, I think he's going to come back, and I think he's going to be great. Kleiman said he was doing like ahead of schedule in his recovery, and we did really miss BC in the playoffs. So I think I'd love to have him back, but you have to be realistic.
Yeah, I agree with all the points you made there. I don't know if I could find anyone that doesn't like BC. He's just high energy, pogo stick, does the dirty work, very likable guy. I really like how he fits with our team, and you could just tell that we missed him out there on our second unit for sure. But I do agree with those points. If we go the trade route instead of free agency or a combo of both, but we end up making a trade, like you said with the contracts, it's going to have to be Tyus and BC most likely. I don't think we'd move on from Steven Adams. I don't think we'd move on from Kennard. So I think it really does come down to those two guys, unless we just package a bunch of smaller salaries, which I don't think we do. So that would suck. The only thing that makes me question whether we'd trade BC is just like, what are teams like other teams' willingness to pay for BC right now? Like, are they willing to take him on in a trade considering his uncertainty? I know that the injury update has been positive and he is ahead of schedule, but it is an Achilles, and that's like the biggest detrimental injury in the NBA. So that could affect his trade value a little bit. So I am a little hesitant to, if I was another team, to take him on, even though he is awesome when he's healthy and we all love him. So I don't know if I could see that happening, but if we did make a trade, he would definitely have to be a part of it, most likely, to make it work.
Yeah. The Achilles is known for when a player recovers not being the same player as they once were, as far as athleticism, explosion. And we just hope that's not the case with BC. Hoping for the best. Was there anything else that y'all wanted to touch on? Because I agree. I agree with all the points you guys made as well. So was there any other player that we wanted to move on to before I guess I kind of switch gears with another topic?
I don't think so.
Okay, so one of like the big topics that really stood out to me in Taylor Jenkins' exit interview was the maturity and like the distractions and everything that went on this season. Of course, you know, we all know about everything like with Ja and the media, and then like talking to the Lakers, you know, giving ourselves our own distractions. That was a lot of the questions that Taylor got in his exit interview. And I love the quote that that came from Taylor, because clearly this shows that he was mad at Dillon. He said, "We don't need to talk. We don't need to talk the talk. We just need to walk the walk and walk the walk." And basically just basically saying, Dillon, don't call LeBron James old. And then the other thing that he really pointed out was, you know, he really spoke to Ja, Jaren, and Bane. Those are like the three that they had dialogue, as Taylor likes to say. I love how he uses the word dialogue so much. But he says that basically a lot of the leadership roles were going to be on our big three, right? Ja, Jaren, and Bane, because now this will be what this was Taylor's fourth year, so he'll be starting his fifth year, and so Ja's had 4 years under Taylor, Jaren's had 4 years under Taylor, Bane's had 3. So what can we expect as far as maybe like a shift in the locker room tone or like leadership characteristics for our big three?
I honestly think it's all about Ja. I mean, I think he's, you know, whether it's you can say it explicitly or just imply it, I think he's the head of the snake in that locker room. I think he's the guy that everyone looks up to, and he's kind of like the alpha in the room. And he's got to, like he said in his exit interview, he's got to do a better job of setting a better example. And I think truly if he can, you know, gather everyone around and get their support and get them behind him, I think they'll be just fine. But, you know, I also think Steven Adams played an important leadership role on this team this past year, even when he was sidelined. I think he'll continue to be a good voice. But, yeah, we're going to need Dez and Jaren to also step up and just contribute and get everyone on the same page and make sure that they're, especially on road trips, that everyone's still locking into playing good basketball and not worried about all the extracurricular stuff that goes on road trips. So I'm not too worried about that per se. I think it all kind of comes back to Ja and his willingness to, get himself together and his willingness to try to win a championship and what that takes. I do think that we would need to get an additional veteran from the outside to help solidify the room. Preferably someone who has won an NBA championship, but even not, just someone who is a veteran and is experienced and can help, because we're still a very young team. And I don't know if I completely am on board with the idea of our top three leaders being Ja, Jaren, and Bane, just because they haven't won anything meaningful. I do think we still need a outside leadership position to come in and help teach these guys the ropes, because they know what it takes to win. And Ja, Jaren, and Bane, they could do as good of a job as they want, but when it gets down to the game 6, game 7 of like second round, third round, and beyond, you're going to need to have a guy like that in your locker room. And so I'm not too worried about it, and I think that the necessary changes will be made. I think that was clear with, the removal of Dillon Brooks and just the tone and the choice words of both Kleiman and Jenkins that will change. But I think it starts with Ja, and then from there, bringing in another voice as well.
Yeah, I agree, Eric. It's kind of a lot of agreement for one Axecast.
More than usual.
I know, right?
First time for everything.
Yeah, I think like if anything, we can maybe expect the Grizz to stop saying so many like what people perceive as overconfident things in their media availability, especially if the rumors are right and Dillon Brooks isn't back, because I think he was one of the main proponents of that. I like to see Jenkins challenging his team to be a little more mature, but I also, from another point of view, think maybe that could have been done privately and not like to the whole world. Like I don't. That's kind of like team business. It's not. You don't want to put your players on blast like that, maybe. But I'm glad it was done. I think that like the trust that he showed in those three guys is great, and I think I'm looking forward to seeing the growth of those guys coming into the next year. And we just don't know about like another guy like you're saying yet. It's Kleiman said it also. We just got to see how everything shapes out. But I do think like outside experience would be super valuable, and I'd be all for it if we can find it. Like even if it's not like a star, if we could find like someone like Jay Crowder, like who was on the team Ja's rookie year, I think that would be valuable as well, just from like the experience. And like Danny Green is a similar guy before we traded him, but they don't even have to be a Kevin Durant type player. You could get someone who just has the experience.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think that I'd love to see like a veteran leader, somebody over the age of 30 that's won meaningful playoff games before, right? We don't have anybody over the age of 30 on this team, right? I think Steve-O's the oldest at 29, if I'm not.
I think so.
I think you're right.
So yeah, I feel like every single year we're the youngest team in the playoffs. I think that's been like the major headline for like 3 straight years. And it's because we still haven't signed a veteran. And I'd really like to see that from Kleiman. Loved Jay Crowder when he was here. And wish we never did that freaking trade.
Winslow.
To send him Winslow. Oh, he was not. Only thing that Zach Kleiman's done wrong. But yeah, walk the walk and walk the walk. I like to see that. And also like Taylor at the end of his like media or exit interview, he like took the time and thanked every media member. He like called out everybody from the Bally Sports crew like by name and just like thanked them for like an amazing season. I just thought that was so cool. Like just a high character guy. Like that's just someone that you want as the face of your franchise, right? Someone that just goes about his business the right way. So I don't know. That was like I've never seen that before. I've never seen like a head coach like thank the media for their job. Like it seems like everybody hates the media. So that was cool to see. And hopefully we have more high character guys that come and be a part of this. Yeah, I'm not sure. I think that was just about everything that I had written down. Was there anything else that you guys wanted to cover?
One thing I want to hear your guys' opinion on is what do you rate Taylor Jenkins's season as a coach this year? What would you grade him?
You want a number out of 10?
We'll just do like A, B minus, something like that.
Okay.
I think you still got to go like an A minus, B plus, right? Second best record in the West. Losing your leading rebounder. All the stuff that was going on with Ja. Bane went out for a while. Jaren was recovering from foot surgery. I mean, there was that headline. We never got like any minutes of like our projected starting lineup, right? Like of Ja, Bane, I guess Dillon, Jaren, and Steve-O. Like, I don't know. I mean, was there like a little bit, but barely any time. And yeah, man, like he's got our team in and out. Like, I think there's obviously playoff mistakes were made. There's no way around that. I mean, I know like questioning some rotations for sure. Like, should have played Kennard more sooner. And like the challenges and stuff. But overall, like I'm happy with Taylor Jenkins. And I'm happy he's the head coach of the Grizzlies.
Yeah, I'll also give him an A minus. I think Jenkins is definitely the best coach I've ever seen the Grizz have. And I'll only give him A minus because like the playoff end was a little disappointing, but I don't think that's on him at all. Like you got Dillon Brooks out there shooting 23%, and the team's shooting like just atrociously from 3-pointers. So I think there's only so much you can do as a coach. But Jenkins consistently like has outperforming the like preseason win estimations, and he does it with a ton of injury adversity also. Like, so I'm extremely happy with Taylor's coaching job, and the best part about him is also he just develops these young players so well and so fast. So who would have thought Bane would be amazing already? Who would have thought Roddy could have had like a besides you? I think even you didn't predict Bane would be this good. Like
no.
Yeah, so by his third year. So I think that is probably his best quality as a coach. And then the playoff was disappointing, but I'm really looking forward to next season, and I couldn't be happier with the job he's done with the team.
Yeah, I'll echo some of that. I think overall I'm very happy he's our coach. He does a lot of great things.
Here's where we're going to disagree.
What?
Here's where we're going to get the disagreement. This
No, I overall I like him. I think he does a lot of great things. He faced an unbelievable amount of injury adversity and outside noise, like all the things that this team had to deal with. It's not hard to coach a team, or it's not easy to coach a team and be the second best record in the league with all those things happening for sure. I will say I'm still a little concerned when you get in a playoff series. I do think he was outcoached by Darvin Ham, and I don't think it was very close personally. A lot of that did have to do with injuries. I did not like a lot of the rotations he made. He did adjust at some point, but I thought it was a little too late. And then, Kennard got hurt, so it didn't really matter anyways. But as a whole, he shows a lot of great things. And I think, he was the first one to say he needs to get better as well. And I think as time goes on and he'll continue to learn, and I do think he'll get better situationally with rotations, hopefully. But as a whole, I think I'll give him a B. He had to face so much adversity, and to coach us up the 2 seed was impressive for sure. Like I said, the only concerns I have are when you get in a 7-game series and it's a coach's duel, and it's all about finding little advantages and little rotation or scheme adjustments that can make the difference in a series. I personally am not to the point where I could say I trust him to get us over that hump schematically or rotation wise. Now I do think he can get there for sure, because he has a lot of other great qualities that has helped this team out tremendously. I do think that's his biggest area in need for improvement. So that's why I'll give him a B. But overall, very happy that he's our coach and he's done a great job.
What about this Grizzly season as a whole, as we're putting the bow on the 2022-23 Grizzlies season? Like personnel and coaches and expectations and reality, like just everything as a whole, what would be y'all's takeaway from this Grizzly season?
Well, this might be a little criticized, but in my opinion, for what we're trying to be, this season was nothing short of a failure. Now, a lot of that we couldn't control with injuries, and it was unfortunate. But being a first-round exit to a play-in team is not ideal. And I know that the team believes the same thing, that this season was a failure. Now, there was a lot of great things to take away from the season. It's not something you could just throw under a rug. They still were the second-best team in the West, and they still had a lot of great moments and had to deal with a lot of adversity on and off the court. But if you're just looking big picture, they were eliminated first round in 6 games by a play-in team. And for a team that's trying to be finals contenders to win championships, and a team that has each and every year up until this point made the incremental steps of growth, this is the first year that they've fallen short of that. And so it's a failure.
I think you have to qualify that with, I do think that preseason I was hoping for better than this, but there was so much nonsense that happened with injuries and Ja Morant nonsense that happened that kind of brought this about. And then on top of that, the Lakers were not just an ordinary play-in team. They had the best record in the NBA after like the trade deadline. And they had LeBron James and Anthony Davis, who are both great players, I guess. So
I guess
it's like, it's not like when you say they lost in the first round to a play-in team, it sounds bad, but I mean, you got to remember who you're playing.
Yeah, that's why I said, like, it's not
Timberwolves.
Like we obviously had to deal with a lot of factors, but if you just look at it big picture on paper, we lost to a play-in team in the first round. Right. So there were a lot of things working against us, and that's why you had to watch the season and see what we had to deal with. But at the end of the day, we're a first-round exit to a play-in team.
I see that, but I'm going to quote Giannis here and say, like, it's not a failure. It's steps to success. So, like, having gone through this is going to make us a better team, and I think that next year they'll definitely be better.
So what's your one word to summarize it?
You can't use one word. Jeez Louise.
Okay.
Nonsense there.
Nonsense. Okay. Yeah, so coming into the season, I think like our predictions were Western Conference Finals, right? I think at some point we were thinking maybe finals. I think at some point we were thinking second round, but at no point were we expecting a first round exit. That was never in the cards as far as our expectations for this Grizzly season. So disappointment is what I'll say. Disappointment because of the whole jaw thing. That was disappointing to see, and that was just sad, that whole situation. Disappointment that Dillon Brooks shot us out of yet another playoffs game. And I mean, the whole team shot us out of that game too. Disappointment that, like we had been on this linear progression. Like first year Taylor, Carmelo Anthony and Damian Lillard take us out of the play-in tournament, but we were right there. Come back next year, we're still a play-in team, but we end the Warriors season and we get some much needed playoff experience. Even steal a game against the Utah Jazz. Granted, it was without Donovan Mitchell, but hey, you win a playoff game and you get some much needed playoff experience. Then you win the first playoff series and you lose to the eventual champion Golden State Warriors without your best player. No shame in that, right? You come into this season thinking we can stack on, we can continue this linear progression, not exactly linear, but progression nonetheless. And to fall to, yes, this is LeBron James. If he's not the greatest player of all time, he's at least the second greatest player of all time. And I know he's 38, but he's still like really good. Anthony Davis, when healthy, is a top 10 player in this league. And he played like it in some games against us. And yeah, like after the trade deadline, like you said it, Luke, I mean, best record since the trade deadline. So this wasn't a normal 7 seed that you're going up against, 2 first ballot Hall of Famers. So disappointment is what I will say. Disappointment because if you'd also find a way to win that Lakers series, you'd be playing the Golden State Warriors tonight and have our shot at the Warriors again. I mean, how gut-wrenching is that? Knowing that this Warriors team is probably a step back from the Warriors team of last year, and we already know the rivalry that we have with the Warriors. How amazing would it be to have another shot at Golden State? And yeah, I mean, it's just disappointing. But I mean, there's valuable playoff experience, like you said. I think it was Luke, and I think it's there's teams with this young of a core that don't get playoff scars like we now have in 3 years. Like the Kings are just now doing it for the first time, and they haven't even won a playoff series, but we've at least have one. I mean, what other young core? I mean, the Thunder didn't even make the playoffs. I don't know. I mean, I can't name every like young core off the top of my head, but we're kind of blessed to be in the situation to be able to be good enough to where we can get these playoff scars and actually mount it towards real success. Not too dissimilar from the Celtics, right? Eastern Conference Finals against LeBron, Tatum's rookie year, I think. And they made a finals run last year. So yeah, that was my takeaway. We anything else that you guys wanted to put in right there?
No, I think we covered it.
And just like you've had tough injury luck too, right? You played a fully healthy Timberwolves team. They weren't missing anybody that playoff series. You played a fully healthy Golden State team. They weren't, they had their core 3, Draymond, Klay, Steph. Nobody else, Jordan Poole, Kevon Looney, Andrew Wiggins, like everybody was healthy then that season.
Gary Payton, maybe.
And then Gary Payton. And then you play the Lakers and they weren't missing anybody. And you're missing 3 of your top 7 players in an elimination game. So,
Yeah.
Tough.
Yeah, it's tough. But yeah, we'll be looking forward to seeing what the Grizzlies do. I guess like summer league, whenever that rolls around, draft, whenever that rolls around. I'm sure we'll want to be doing some like draft reactions and stuff. Whenever that gets here. I know I'll be watching the rest of the playoffs, but I'm sure y'all will too. But yeah, I guess that'll do it for this edition of the Axecast. Grizzly season ends, but we're still here. We're still believe Memphis. We're still mem this, and we'll see what the Grizzlies' future holds.
Yep.
Signing off for now. This has been the Axecast with Caleb, Luke, and Eric. See y'all.